When we think of Japan, what comes to mind? Cutting edge technology, low crime rates, a rich and fascinating culture, and one of the largest economies in the world. A country that seems to have achieved the perfect balance between tradition and modernity. But this is only the surface. Beneath this shiny exterior lies a much darker side, rarely seen outside the country. A side where millions of people, despite all the progress, have been left behind, isolated, with little hope for a better future. These people are part of the so-called lost generation, representing around 15% of Japan's population. Their story is not just tragic, but also a warning about Japan's future. This is the dark side of Japan. In the 1980s, Japan was seen as the next global economic superpower, poised to surpass the United States and dominate the global economy. The fear of an economic Pearl Harbor was palpable, and Japan was often portrayed in the media as a corporate giant that would buy out the US. This anxiety stemmed from what became known as the Japanese miracle. 3 decades of astounding economic growth, driven by a unique economic system that, at the time, seemed superior to the Western model. This growth was fueled by large corporate conglomerates called Keiretsu, which, in partnership with the Japanese government, formed a powerful alliance. These Keiretsu received massive loans from the Bank of Japan, allowing aggressive overseas expansion while keeping foreign companies out of the Japanese market. It was an unbalanced system, but it worked. The Japanese stock market soared, Japanese products dominated global markets, and the average citizen knew that with a university degree they could secure a lifelong job in a major corporation. Japan seemed unstoppable, until it wasn't. In 1991, after decades of rapid growth, the Japanese economy hit a critical point. Real estate prices and stocks were grossly inflated, driven by rampant speculation. The Bank of Japan continued to lend money indiscriminately until in 1990 the bubble burst. The stock market plummeted by 43% and real estate prices collapsed. What followed was a decade of economic stagnation, known as the Lost Decade. This crisis exposed widespread corruption within the Japanese system, from stock manipulation to fraud and bribery. Companies that should have gone bankrupt continued to survive, propped up by endless government loans. Japan went from being an economic tiger to the sick man of Asia. But Japan's fall wasn't just an economic crisis. It was a catastrophe for an entire generation. To understand the impact of this crisis, we need to look at Japan's intense and unique work and hiring culture. A corporate career begins with shushoku katsudo, a job-hunting ritual that university graduates undergo at the end of their studies. The largest companies hire only new graduates, once a year, and en masse. Those who pass through this process secure lifelong employment, a practice known as shushin koyo. The company invests in these employees' development, promoting them internally over the decades. But this rigid system has a significant flaw. Those who miss the initial opportunity are permanently excluded. And that's exactly what happened when the bubble burst. As companies froze hiring to preserve their lifetime employees, an entire generation was left out, with no chance of entering the job market. These young people, now in their 30s or 40s, were condemned to temporary, low-paying jobs. Thus, the lost generation was born. The story of the lost generation goes beyond just economic struggles. The psychological toll on these individuals has been severe. Many of them were raised in a society that promised stability and security if they followed the rules. Study hard, get into a good university, and secure a job for life. But when the system failed them, it shattered their sense of identity and purpose. This sense of hopelessness has led to an alarming increase in mental health issues among the lost generation. Depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders have become prevalent, exacerbated by the stigma attached to seeking help. In Japan, mental health issues are often swept under the rug, leading to a lack of adequate support and resources for those in need. Moreover, the cultural pressure to conform and succeed has driven some to extreme measures. Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, and a significant portion of these are attributed to the lost generation. This tragic reality is a stark reminder of the deep societal issues that have been ignored for too long. One of the most extreme manifestations of the lost generation's plight is the rise of the Hikikomori, individuals who withdraw entirely from society, often living in isolation for years or even decades. The term hikikomori literally means pulling inward or being confined. It describes people who shut themselves off from the outside world, often retreating to their rooms and relying on their parents or caregivers for basic needs. Today, it is estimated that nearly 1 million Japanese live as hikikomori, with many more at risk of becoming recluses. The reasons for this phenomenon are complex, involving a mix of social, economic, and psychological factors. For the lost generation, the inability to secure stable employment and the resulting sense of failure have driven many to retreat from a society that they feel has abandoned them. The hikikomori phenomenon is not just a personal tragedy, but a national crisis. As these individuals age, they place an increasing burden on their families and the healthcare system. The Japanese government has recognized the issue, but solutions have been slow to materialize, and the problem continues to grow. Japan's aging population compounds the challenges faced by the lost generation. With one of the highest life expectancies in the world and one of the lowest birth rates, Japan's demographic crisis is unprecedented. By 2050, it is projected that nearly 40% of the population will be over 65, and the ratio of elderly to working-age individuals will be almost 1:1. This demographic shift has profound economic implications. The shrinking workforce means fewer people are available to support the growing number of retirees. The traditional family structure, where younger generations care for their elderly relatives, is breaking down, placing additional strain on the welfare system. The lost generation, many of whom are childless and financially insecure, face an uncertain future as they age. The economic stagnation that began in the 1990s has persisted, leading to what some economists describe as a permanent recession. With limited opportunities for advancement and declining job security, even younger generations struggle to find their place in Japan's economy. The lost generation's experience serves as a warning of what may lie ahead for future generations. The Japanese government has taken steps to address the issues facing the lost generation and the broader economic challenges. Initiatives to encourage job creation, support for mental health services, and programs aimed at reintegrating hikikomori into society have been implemented. However, these efforts have been met with mixed success. Critics argue that the government's response has been too little, too late. Structural issues within the Japanese economy and labor market remain unaddressed, and many of the lost generation feel abandoned by the very institutions that were supposed to protect them. The rigid job market, cultural stigma around mental health, and the slow pace of reform have only exacerbated the problems. Furthermore, the rise of precarious employment, such as freeters, temporary workers, and parasite singles, unmarried adults living with their parents, has created a new class of underemployed individuals who lack the stability and security of previous generations. These trends suggest that the lost generation is not an isolated phenomenon, but part of a broader societal shift. The story of Japan's lost generation is not just a cautionary tale for Japan, but for the world. As other countries face similar economic pressures, aging populations, and changing labor markets, they too could see the rise of a lost generation. The Japanese experience highlights the dangers of an economic system that prioritizes growth at the expense of social stability and individual well-being. In an increasingly interconnected world, the issues faced by Japan's lost generation are a microcosm of broader global challenges. The rise of income inequality, the erosion of job security, and the mental health crisis are not unique to Japan. As other nations grapple with these issues, they would do well to learn from Japan's experience and take proactive steps to prevent a similar fate. Japan's lost generation is a painful reminder that economic progress does not always translate into prosperity for all. As Japan continues to face unique challenges, the story of this generation serves as a warning to the world about the dangers of an economic system that leaves the most vulnerable behind. The dark side of Japan is a tale of missed opportunities, broken promises, and the resilience of those who refuse to be forgotten. As we wrap up this deep dive into the dark side of Japan and the story of the lost generation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the challenges faced by this generation and the impact on Japanese society? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a conversation. If you found this video insightful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might find it interesting. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.